Hey guys, Reedy here. Just letting you know that you are right now listening to part one of our two-part forwards review for the Tigers in 2024. We just thought we'd split it up. It was a little bit too long. So part one's out today, which you're listening to. Part two comes out on Friday. Let's crack on.
We were once all strangers, became good friends over time, seeking retribution. We got winning on our mind. We've got to cross the line.
West Tigers faithful 008, zero footballing IQ, zero idea, and 8 episodes. I'm Jared Reedy. With me is Joe McCord. How are you, mate?
Excellent. That was the best intro yet.
I'll take that. Before I jump into the grand final and everything like that, thank you to everybody for coming back. I know that it had been so long since last week. The outpouring and the response we've gotten from a stack of people, couldn't be happier. Some very, very rusted on West Tigers Twitter accounts, in particular Tigercast, the Spray, and the Tiger Town podcast, who have always giving us a shout out. I think you went to school with one of the boys on there, didn't you, Mac?
I did, yes. Toby went to school back in Coffs Harbour with Toby. He's a good lad.
Shout out Tobes. Mate, how was your it wouldn't be actually, you're in Queensland. You wouldn't have had the long weekend, would you not?
No, we had the long weekend.
What'd you do?
Drank a lot of beer. A lot.
Yeah, me too. What are you drinking at the minute?
Well, on the weekend I went down to my local that happens to have a really good cool room of crafties, and I bought 12 different cans. So I went on an adventure.
Anything that you pulled out of the lucky dip that you're actually going to utilize again?
No, not really, actually. Like, I mean, because it was hot, I just was buying like all the summer ales and the lagers and stuff, and they were all much for a muchness, really. I think the best one I had was there was a Garage Project Red Dog, Red Miso, and Red Rye ale. That was probably the highlight. So
Okay. Yeah, you
Garage,
showed me that. You showed me that one actually.
yeah, Garage Project based out of NZ. Actually, there was two Garage Project beers in the mix there. The other one was a liquid hops IPA, which actually was also really good. Actually, now that I remember it, which is surprising that I can remember it, I actually started on the Garage Project and ended on the Garage Project. So yeah, it was good.
Nice way to match it all up. Grand final was Sunday. We obviously had our predictions. You went Melbourne, I went Penrith. What did you think of the game?
I thought that you called it very well. That's what I thought of the game. I thought it was a it was a hard fought, like high quality game, but it was one of those games that was like so good that it was almost like not good, if you know what I mean. Like it was
I
very,
absolutely agree. It was like
yeah.
we watched this desperation from these two teams. And as a
Mm,
neutral, you want to see that desperation, but you also want to see a little bit of attacking brilliance. And there was
exactly.
probably there was 2 or 3 moments of pure attacking brilliance, but those moments only came from one team.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd agree with that. Like, I think that Melbourne had some really good moments around the middle with like Pappenhausen and Grant, and but like they
But yeah, they had that moment early that where they looked like Smith, Croft, and Slater actually. So yeah, I'll give you that.
the issue though was just Penrith's just got such incredible scramble defense. They've got such incredible defense in every area of the game. So like you're not gonna be able to catch them by surprise, because even if you do make a midfield line break, somebody's going to stop you.
It's seriously the only team that I have seen that defends like that. They deserve everything that comes to them, and they are the absolute benchmark. And look, once Nelson was ruled out officially, because I don't think he was ever going to get back, I just did not think that in Fisher Harris and Leota's last club game together, that was the Melbourne were ever going to get a word in. And,
Well, the thing about that though is like it got compounded like by the fact that Tui Kamikamica only played 18 minutes. He played his first stint and didn't come back.
that's true.
And then that young fella that they had on the bench as a prop. He also only played 10 minutes. So like they had, yeah, they ended up just overworking guys that probably shouldn't have been like even there in the first place. And then to top it off, I think their best middle forward was Wishart, and he's 80 kilos ringing wet. So
Actually, now you mention it, how light was their middle through the middle of the game? They had Liero, McDonald, and Wishart all carting the ball up through the middle. Now that you mention it, which was, I actually admire Bellamy's courage for doing that against such a big pack that Penrith have. But look, it didn't really tell on the scoreboard or in the collision either. Both teams were just, bashing the shit out of each other, which was quite interesting, and a credit to those boys that they can hold up. But Sean Bloor, one of our old boys. I won't talk about Luai and Taruva because we'll talk about them in a later episode. But Blory had a great start. That quick play the ball for Grant got them on the scoreboard. It was beautiful. And then if they made him make so many tackles that the second he put his hands on his knees, Jerome Luai went, "Oh, we've got him," and threw the ball over to Nathan Cleary, who then had a change of pace and just put Liam Martin away. It was just, that was attacking magic in my view. Just beautiful playmaking.
yeah, it was great to watch as a Tigers fan. That sort of vision. I think Luai and Galvin have the potential to be very special. Like, because they're both eyes up footballers, but they bring slightly different aspects to it. Galvin's obviously got a bit more size about him. He's not as quick on his feet, but he's got the vision. Luai's got the quickness on his feet. I almost feel like we should swap their jerseys.
It's a fair school of thought, but obviously Luai being a bit older, him being the marquee signing, him wanting to play halfback, those sorts of things. It might be one of those things where, a bit like Benji in his younger days, where he was wearing one jumper, but he was actually doing the role of the other. But yeah, that's one for another time. One thing that did come out as in the West Tigers news cycle was a young fella by the name of Heamasi Makasini re-signed with the club. I actually had a few of my mates. Sort of text me and go, "Oh, he looks good," but I haven't seen much of him. We've seen a lot of him, but some people that aren't listening might not. I normally do the player description, so I'm going to let you do the player description. Who is Heamasi Makasini?
So he reminds me of a few players in both codes, but only a few, because he's fairly unique. Like, he's a bit of a one of one. I think that your comp with Israel Folau is very apt. Except I think he might be a bit thicker, a bit bigger than Folau.
I'll pay that. Folau was quite silky. And that's not to say that Heamasi isn't silky. He's got a beautiful pair of hands, but he's a little bit more devastating, isn't he?
Yeah. So to me, like, he reminds me the most of, like, in terms of watching his rugby highlights, he's like a young John Olomu. And like, that's
you can say it.
that's what like, the rugby union media refer to him as. Like, he's a sort of kid that in the juniors in rugby, he will routinely make runs like that famous Lomu run against the Wallabies, I think it was. Aside from that, he's a bit of a one of one, because he's like that devastating outside back. He's mostly played in the centers, but he's probably going to come into grade very young, so they'll probably blood him on the wing. Plays wing in Union, debuted in Flegg this year at the age of 17 as a winger. But he's also skillful, because he's a good goal kicker. And it makes me wonder, like, just where just what he might look like if he was more on the ball kind of player. Because if he's the sort of kid because you don't usually find like unsort of skillful players being goal kickers as they come up through the grades. So there might be more to him than meets the eye even, but I don't know. I'm just very excited. He's a bit of a one of one, and especially as far as West Tigers go. We've not had a player of his pedigree come through as a junior outside back literally in the history of the club. We've had a couple like him that have come from elsewhere, like, the Lotties and Taniela Tuiakis, but like he's definitely the only one like him that's come up through the juniors that's actually ended up staying with us. So I'm very excited about it. We'll be seeing him in first grade next year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you look at the way that we blooded these juniors this year. Heamasi is, with the exception of probably Lachlan Galvin, Mussie's as talented as all of them, if not more talented. I think you're right. I think he comes into grade on the wing, and then he'll eventually replace Justin Olam when his contract expires in 2026. What I love about Heamasi is his work rate. Despite the fact that he is this big, devastating Polynesian outside back, he does not shirk his workload. He'll take hit ups off his own line. He works really, really hard on his defense, albeit it does need a little bit of tweaking. But he's 17 years old. His contact is great. It's just making reads, and that just comes with time. He's amazing under the high ball, both attacking and defending the football.
Yeah, he gets up and catches them above his head, AFL style.
Yeah, he does.
One thing that I'm happy about is that he's probably a lot like a ready-made sort of like-for-like replacement for Junior Tupu, who I was really worried that we were going to miss.
Yeah.
Tupu, if anything, like if you look at the developmental curve that he had as a kid, he was a 2-code player. We got him back from the Brumbies. He's a bit of a budget version of Makasini in what he brings to the game. So if anything, as long as Makasini is who he seems to be, we'll probably actually see pretty quickly that he's an upgrade. Yeah,
I completely agree with you, mate. The other flip side of the argument is that Anthony Large has left the club, not because Heamasi has been retained, but simply because he feels as if his pathway as a 5'8" has been blocked. You said earlier that Mussy was blooded this year as a 17-year-old in Flegg. His good mate Anthony was the same, and the club wanted to develop him as a centre, but ultimately he's made this decision to go to Manly. I won't lie to you, I'm disappointed. I think he's an amazing athlete. He's going to make a lot of money in whatever code he plays, because he plays union just like Heamasi. But at the same time, we've got two incredible, very talented young halves in front of him. And sometimes, these things happen. And some of the demands I think that were made by his parents and his management was slightly unrealistic. How did you see that?
Yeah, I think that I would think he would make a good centre, except for the fact that so far he has shown a lack of willingness to get physical in league, at least. I've seen plenty of highlights of him in union where he's actually running the ball a lot, but in league he was playing in a dinner suit. And I think that even as a 6, you look at Galvin, there were games when Galvin was getting tackled 24 times. Could you imagine Large doing that in first grade? I can't. Not for a while yet. He might get there. So from that perspective, if I was sort of in his ear, I would have been saying to him, look, you should probably consider maybe coming through as a fullback, because, as a fullback, you've got more space. You're not expected to be, on the ball all the time. You're not going to be getting tackled as much. You're not going to, and I think, there would have been the same temptation to play him as a center, but in those flag games, he kind of just stood on the edge. He didn't really get himself over involved. And of course, he was a young fella playing quite upper grade, so that might have just been between the years. I'm less bothered by it than I might have been 6 months ago, because Galvin turned out to be who he was, because Latu Fainu had such a good ending to the year. He was really good in that Manly game. And also, I think that one thing I was worried about was that we were probably going to lose him in a package with his brother. And it doesn't seem like that's necessarily going to be the case, because Ashton's still here, and he's in the off-season training squads. And I think Ashton is more of a rugby league player than Oni. The way he goes after the game in the Mats games I watched Ashton, like he sort of, whenever they needed a spark, whenever they needed somebody to do something, he would put the team on his back and he would deliver. Like he just strikes me as more of a league style of player than Oni.
I actually agree with you. Look, I do think that he'll eventually follow his brother. There's always been articles of when they were kids that, they've always loved playing with each other and they've always felt as if they've gone to another level. I just want to backtrack first and foremost. You're right about Anthony. I've seen a lot of him play both in person and otherwise. And, there are times when he's more than willing to take the easy option. So whether that's throwing at the early ball or, sort of taking the half-ass hit up as opposed to really cutting it off and using his speed and power to win the collision. Look, he's got a little bit of a way to go from a conditioning point of view, but it's disappointing that he doesn't really have that in his game. But that's not to say that he won't develop that. But from all reports, Anthony Seabold has apparently promised him a debut next year. And first and foremost, I don't think he's ready. Just off what I've seen, and second of all, if he's debuting against the Roosters or the Dogs and he's got Angus Crichton or Viliami Kickout breathing down his neck, I just don't think he's ready for it. But look, this is what his family wants, and they want him to debut and everything like that. And look, he's a young kid. I'm not going to be hate watching him or anything like that. He's one of the most talented kids to ever come out of the Campbelltown area. But at the same time, you understand from a West Tigers point of view why we let him go. He didn't want to play centre, and we've got a generational 5'8" and potentially another generational 5'8" and an incredible halfback who may well just be generational if he leads us to his fifth premiership ring. So anyway, mate, let's move on. What we are going to do today is we are going to review the forwards, similar to the player reviews that they probably copped a few weeks back. We're just going to go through stats. We're going to go through some things we saw, some things we liked, some things we didn't like, and sort of where we think they're headed in terms of their development trajectory. So I've got some statistical analysis, as I said, but we're going to split these players up into three groups. We're going to go with the rookies, so that's 5 games or less, so like your Tim Johanssons and your Kit Laulitis, your remaining players, so the guys that are going to stick around for 2025 and beyond, and the guys that are heading out the door. We're not going to spend much time on those leaving, to the point where I think we're actually going to do that first off the rank, and then Mac just letting you know as we change to the run sheet, we'll probably do the current players, then the rooks just to finish off. That sound good with you?
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Beautiful. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to get the blokes that I really don't want to succeed in their future endeavours out of the way. Stefano Utoikamanu, the man who did not want his clause enacted, judging by the way he played. His stats were as followed, and these stats are the same for everybody. Stefano played 24 games for the club. He had 3 tries. He averaged 11 runs per game. He averaged 95 metres a game, for an average carry of 8.6 metres. There was 5 line breaks he made for the season, 95 tackle breaks, which averages out at about 4 a game, which is quite impressive. 22 offloads, so nearly 1 a game. But defensively, he left a lot to be desired. A tackle efficiency percentage in the middle of 88%, 6 try causes, 17 line break causes, and finally, in with his discipline, it was 10 errors and 9 penalties. Look, we've been over this before. Stefano started the year off red hot. He was saying all the right things. He was doing all the right things. It looked as if he was committed to the club, but there was a point in the year, and it kind of coincided with the entire team falling off a cliff, where Stefano's heart just clearly wasn't in it. And as a result, his performances began to suffer and the team's performances began to suffer. Do you agree, Mac?
Yeah, I think Stefano actually made his mind up like quite suddenly at some point in the season, because it was very sort of abrupt. And I think that what he was saying earlier in the season, he believed at the time. And then something changed, whether it was after a conversation with his manager, after a conversation with his lady, or, maybe something to do with like the dressing room vibe around what was happening with people getting tapped on the shoulder or this or that. But at a certain point, it seemed like he went from wanting to be here and wanting to, actually make the Blues and actually, try to get the club over the hump. And it happened earlier than I would have expected. I would have thought that if he was going to like lose faith in this club being the right place for him, he would have put in for a bit longer. But aside from that, yeah, I think Stefano, like the fact that he only averaged what was it, 8 point something per carry.
8.6 meters a carry as a starting front rower in the NRL.
Yeah, I think that he must have the lowest average meters per tackle break of any player in the history of the NRL. Like he's like the amount of times that he breaks a tackle and then proceeds to make 0 to 2 more meters after a tackle break is actually mind blowing. Like, usually, tackle breaks will happen because, you'll bust through an arm tackle and you just run another 3 or 4, 5 meters at minimum, if not further. But Stefano, all of his tackle breaks are from front on contact, knocking people on their butt. And I think that, we've touched on Parramatta having the wood on him last week on the podcast in that last game, and I think that was kind of like that's something he'll need to really be mindful of moving to Melbourne. Is I don't think he handles lateral contact well at all. Like, I think if you try to hit him front on, you're obviously on a hiding to nothing, but like if you hit him side on, he just falls over. So he's got a lot to work on. Good on him. Good luck to him. This Stefano era is over.
Yeah, look, I think Craig Bellamy is going to turn him into a superstar. All the raw ingredients are there. But look, there's going to be a million articles on I can't believe the Tigers let him go when the time comes. But
we didn't let him go.
The facts are this, mate. At the end of the day, for what he dished up for 4 months of the season in the back end just was not up to standard of a starting front rower in the NRL. So with that, I say good riddance. Another person I want to say good riddance to, although it's not confirmed that he's leaving, although I think he is John Bateman. Now, this is a really, really weird stats sheet. I don't have his Super League stats, by the way. I couldn't be bothered finding them. But in 12 games, he had no tries, but 1 try assist. He averaged 11 runs per game, so as many as Stefano and Isaiah Papali'i. He had 81 meters for an average carry of 7.3. Obviously, as a back rower, it's a bit skewed. You get the ball at the line, you tackle by the half straight away. But he had 1 line break for 20 tackle breaks, so it was over 1 a game. He had 21 offloads in 12 games, so he loves passing the ball. 91% tackle efficiency, 7 try causes, 12 line break causes in 12 games, 11 errors in 12 games, and 8 penalties in 12 games. Mate, John started the year really, really well. Just seeing him rev the boys up in that Parramatta game where we withstood their advances on our line for so long, and the passion he had at that time was, you could feel it. And as time wore on and the losses began to stack up, I think it got to a point where you could openly question his character for him to eventually start blasting junior players or rookies in the squad. Unfortunately, you can't be doing that. And to be quite honest with you, he's not the leader that I thought that he might have been for us. And that's extremely disappointing. I know you called him out personally the other week. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I could make excuses for John Bateman, and I'm going to discuss when we talk about Alex Seyfarth a few things that I think also apply to Bateman. So I'll point out those when we talk about him. But as you say, the reality is that you expect more out of him, not just because of his experience level and his vice captaincy, but because of his salary. And I think that, yeah, I'll save the specifics for when we talk about Alex, but I personally think that, John Bateman, I would prefer him to move on. But if he goes and plays for a club that has more quality, I think you'll see a different player.
I think so too. And I think the way that a team utilizes him in attack is really important. John thrives when he's turned back underneath and there's a little bit of space for him to maneuver, whether there's a fullback sort of running hard and straight as he sort of meanders on that 45-degree angle. He loves to kick back through the line, that sort of stuff. He thrives in that and in a broken defensive line. And I will say that at the beginning of the year, we were very defensively oriented. He was on that left edge, which is not his usual edge, and he was Lachlan Galvin's bodyguard. But It got to a point at the end of the year where he was frustratingly giving away stupid penalties and was not doing things reminiscent of a player, as you say, of his salary, or as a vice captain of the club. So, look, I don't think he'll be back. I think I've seen from the interviews and the Instagram posts and everything else out the other side that he just won't be here next year. I think the club and him will come to an agreement. We'll probably pay a bit of his salary. I think he'll go to one of the Isaac Moses McDonald's franchises, and we'll wish him well. So
Yeah,
anyway.
I hope so.
Yeah. All right. Somebody we will miss is Isaiah Papali'i. 16 games. He had 5 tries and 1 try assist in those games. He averaged 11 runs per game, 90 meters per game for 8.1 meters per carry. He had 4 line breaks and 30 tackle breaks, 14 offloads and a tackle efficiency of 88%, which led to 7 try causes, 12 line break causes, 9 errors and 7 penalties. Look, first and foremost, again, back row stats are quite hard to read, but I am certain that if I were to measure Isaiah's stats from the moment he moved to the middle in that Newcastle game, that his stats would read amazingly. He came to the club in acrimonious circumstances after Madge was sacked. I don't think he knew fully whether or not he wanted to be here. He sat down and shut up. He had a really, really tough year last year outside Luke Brooks. I saw him burst into tears after the Manly game after we lost about our 7th or 8th in a row. But he made his tackles and he worked his bum off. And at the beginning of the year this year, he just looked fit and cut and ready to go. And up until the last in Spoon Bowl, he did not let up. And I don't think that we've adequately replaced him. I think Stefano, you can move the forward pack around a little bit and promote somebody, but Ice is somebody that we have not yet replaced. We may do in the coming weeks, but at this point, we are really, really going to miss him, and I genuinely wish him the best. And he's going to do so well in that Penrith system. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I wonder where they're going to play him, because they've obviously got a gap now to fill with Fisher Harris leaving, and they've.
So the way I see it, sorry to jump in, I believe that Sorensen will go back to the bench and resume that middle role that he had in 2021 and 2022. Lindsay Smith will start in the engine room next to Leota, and Ice will be on that left edge, either next to Jack Cole or Blaze Talangi. That's what I'm assuming.
Well, if that's the case, they're going to have the best back rowers in the game. Like Liam Martin and Papali'i back row combo. Are you just kidding me? The rich get richer. Yeah, I think that Papali'i did start the season. I didn't think he started the season all that well, although I agree that he looked fit. It wasn't for me that he started standing out until he came back from injury. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that he knew he wasn't going to be here anymore. So he was playing without the burden that he felt. Seems like a very emotional player to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, I probably need to rephrase. I think that in that first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, he looked electric. I think he went stale in the weeks that followed, where we lost a stack on the trot before he was then moved to the middle, and that was when he began to produce again. I remember you saying to me once in the Discord, you said, it's like he realized he was good again. The middle, he was moved to the middle. So, look, there's no days off in that Penrith system, and he's going to be a wonderful acquisition for them. They're obviously going to have to tinker with their forward pack, but again, he's going to be utilised in the correct manner there next year, and on both sides of the ball, he's going to be a wonderful addition for them. So I wish him the best. Somebody, again, who is unconfirmed to be leaving, but was not sort of confirmed in the wash-up of the 7 re-signings and signings for the second tier was Ruben Porter. Ruben had 8 games. The reason he's not in the rookie category is because he played more than 5 games. So he had 8 games. He had no tries, but 2 try assists. I think both of them might have even been in that Cowboys game, that absolutely nuts game. He was averaging 8 runs for 68 meters per game with an average carry of 8.5 meters. He had 1 line break for the entire season and 5 tackle breaks, 5 offloads, a tackle efficiency percentage of 88%, 2 try causes, 6 line break causes, no errors, which is quite good in 8 games, and conceded 4 penalties. Mate, I think Ruben is the ideal build for a back rower. He's very thick. He's quite tall. He can offload a little bit, as you can see by his stats. He's a good hole runner. He can find a gap. But the reason I believe, and this is no disrespect to Ruben, because he's done very, very well in his time as a footballer playing in State Cup. He's obviously reliable and he's been in a lot of systems. But, mate, his biggest issue is getting on his bike in defence and getting to the half. There has been so many times when teams swing wide and they go block for block. And, I recall the Warriors did it to him and he just didn't get on his bike fast enough. Scott Drinkwater did it to him. He just does not get to the half in time. And as a result, he puts his teammates under pressure. They can't slide off. And eventually, there's going to be overlaps. So with that, I congratulate him because he's grafted so long for his debut. And I'd be happy to keep him around in a part-time capacity. But again, I sort of see why it's taken him so long to get a debut, because that defensive deficiency is quite glaring.
Yeah, I think that there's a chance that he's not leaving. I have a feeling, and I have a reason for it. I have a feeling that there is actually going to be like an active competition in the off season for the 30th position on the roster between a few forwards. And I think there's a chance he'll be one of them. I think it'll come down to whether or not he can actually find another home. Like if another team throws a top 30 contract at him, then obviously he'll go. But if another team doesn't, and there's an active contest for him to enter in our team, he'll at least stick around to see if he can get that spot. The names I think you'll see in that contest are him and Tim Johansson. And maybe Sione Finu, depending on whether or not what bears out with him. But yeah, this is because there's some weird stuff happening around all three of those guys. I think that if we had the spots, we'd probably have Tim Johansson in the top 30 and probably have Sione Finu in the top 30, but we simply don't. Porter is weird. Like I feel like we should try to keep him just because of how skint we are in the back row. Like it feels weird to move on somebody that we only just blooded that performed pretty well. So like I know he's a bit older, but he's only just sort of had his first taste of first grade. Going into an off season after having as much first grade experience as he did this year, it'll give him a lot of tools, a lot of information, a lot of things to work on that he wouldn't have experienced before. Like he'll at least now know what he has to work on. Whereas before he was always just coming into off season, training with second tier teams, coming into off season off of, essentially being the best player on the park in the New South Wales Cup or Queensland Cup side. So I don't know. I would like to see him come back around. I don't think he was like incredible. I agree with your appraisal of his defensive issues and stuff like that, but I really was impressed by what he offered with ball in hand. I was really impressed, to be honest. Like I didn't think that he had some of that stuff in him, like some of those like long range line breaks, much quicker than I thought he was.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think he was a bit quicker again. It's just checking and releasing that player in defence. Look, if we see Ruben retained on a train and trial deal or even a development contract, because we've still got a few spots left, I wouldn't scoff at it. I've got no issue with that. It's just my personal opinion that, he's got a little bit more work to do, and West Tigers has, thrown out a few full-time contracts a little bit too easily sometimes.
Who would you prefer, him or Tony Sucker?
Oh, okay, good question. I would go Suka. Okay. And the reason being is because what's West Tigers' number one issue and has been since its inception, and that's defense. And as we'll get to, Tony's defensive stats in cup, in the middle, and on an edge are pretty good. But that's just my observation. Do you want to move into some current players and talk about some blokes that we're going to hold on to?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to start from the bottom because we'll talk about Samuela Fanua and Alex Seafarth, who are pretty pivotal parts of our ascension up the ladder next year. So with that, the player with the least games that is sticking around is Justin Matamua, who is a very polarizing character amongst West Tigers fans. 7 games this year, he had 1 try assist. He averaged 4 runs a game for 34 metres, 8.5 meters a carry. I don't have how many minutes he played here, so 4 carries probably means that he was only playing 15 to 20. He had no line breaks, 3 tackle breaks, 1 offload, a tackle efficiency percentage of 92%, 1 try cause, 2 line break causes, 1 error, 2 penalties. So his discipline's okay, and defensively he's all right. But my biggest thing with Justin is, and I've watched him since he was about 16 years old, because he was the best thing to come through the West pathways since like Ray Stone. Like he was really, really good in those days. He used to put the teams on his back. This was when we didn't have the pathways investment. And he played as a 5'8", but it was clear that he outgrew that a little bit, like, you know, some of the great forwards like your Dave Taylors and whatnot. And he was moved to 13. I think Justin looks quite good in his age group. That 19 Origins game that he played in 2022 was a reflection of that. But Mac, I'm sure you'll agree. My biggest knock on Justin is his lack of mongrel, which I think only certain coaches and systems can instill in you. Spoiler alert: 2 of them played in the grand final last week. And furthermore, I think he finds it quite hard to find the balance between passing and running as a 13. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think Matamua has a lot to offer. I don't think that he's ever going to be a forward that's going to be somebody who has mongrel. And I don't think you necessarily have to be. I just think it becomes more apparent when nobody in your pack has mongrel. So somebody like Matamua in a pack where there's other enforcers around him and he can be the skillful guy, then all he has to work on is getting his work rate up.
That's a great point.
And then once he has his work rate up, you can see his tackle efficiency numbers are good. This year, he improved a lot in contact. He did take in a per minutes basis, he did take his fair share of carries. His average run meters in State Cup was more than adequate. He didn't really get enough time on the field in the NRL to formulate a real benchmark about what he's like as a work rate player. But when you have him on the field alongside a whole bunch of other guys that none of which can be defined as enforcers, other forward packs just lick their lips. And a lot of the contest in the pack is mental. And so if you have nobody who's going to actually win the mental game over another pack, the other pack will just dog walk you, really. And Matamua is just one of those kind of guys. I think that somebody like Sione Fainu offers very similar to him in terms of the good stuff that he brings, but also has more mongrel. He's also a stronger physical presence. He's a little bit older. So I think one of the things that you mentioned before the show was that you think that he would look better in he would work better in a different system, or he needs a change of scenery. And I agree with that.
Yeah, mate, purely on a hypothetical, there's a lot of guys that sort of pass as a 13, and we sort of and ahed about a lot of them. Some have gotten more game time in the NRL than others. Some have been redeveloped as props. You've got Sione Fainu, Justin Matamua, Kit Laulii, and Chris Fangutu in the top 30 next year, right? I'm assuming that Sione's going to be kept. Assuming that we don't sign a Kobe Hetherington or whatever, who's your starting 13 next year?
Out of those 4?
Yeah.
Has to be out of those 4. If I'm picking from specifically those 4, it's Sione.
Yeah.
I think that you can't. I mean, I don't think Fangutu is really in the frame yet. There are the names there that I don't think any of those 4 will be our starting 13. I think our starting 13 will probably be Seyfarth or Bolle or something like that, or maybe Jack Bird.
Yeah, it's possible.
But I think that the game has moved towards having that small 13, tough 13, Cam McInnes sort of archetype 13. But because we don't have a dominant forward pack, we always revert back to playing the 13 as an extra prop to our own detriment. So And next year, I don't see a dominant forward pack. So we're probably going to do that again, is my assumption. And so from that perspective, you'll probably see Twal and Bolle and stuff like that playing 13 quite a bit.
Fair enough. Somebody that you did mention there was Sione Finu, who had, I think, a pretty awesome debut season. 12 games, scored 2 tries, averaged 6 runs a game for 68 meters, 11.3 meters per carry. Our only player that had above 10 meters on average in the NRL. 2 line breaks, 19 tackle breaks, 7 offloads, a tackle efficiency of 89%. So there's a bit of work to do there. 6 try causes. 2 try causes, 6 line break causes. Sorry, Sione. I know you're a better defender than that. 4 errors and 1 penalty. One stat that I did pick up, again, shout out to the Rugby League eye test. Mate, did you know that based on the angles at which players run from when they get the ball, that Sione Finu is the second straightest runner in the entire National Rugby League?
That's pretty awesome considering considering what team he plays for.
And considering his size, look, his footwork at the line is exceptional. I think that's probably his best asset. He's really light on his feet. But apart from Daniel Saifidi, he just makes a beeline, just goes straight. That's nuts. Similar to what you said, I think ball in hand, he can throw a decent pass. He can offload. He's got that footwork at the line again. There's a little bit of work to do defensively, but watching him play first grade this year was one of the shining lights of our season. If anybody's been following the pathways for the past 2 years, Sione was well behind where he needed to be. His brother's come to the club this year, and he has just gone to another level. To the point where, irrespective of who or what we sign in this forward pack, he makes a near irresistible case to pick him somewhere in that 17 in first grade next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I was looking well before the end of the season at the off-contract talent that was available around the NRL in the pack, and like I thought back then, and still think he's the best off-contract forward in the NRL. So you've already got him at the club. You got both his brothers at the club, and you need forwards. Like, if we don't sign him, somebody else will. And to be honest, we must be, because he would have been picked up by now if not, because he had that good of a season. And I think he had the sort of season where you look at what he did this year and you can see that he's going to have a huge next year. Like, can you imagine if he went to the Warriors or he went to the Sharks or, any other club, most other clubs, he would end up probably a starting prop. Like, he's got that level to him. The thing that he's got a few traits that a lot of forwards don't have. One, he's actually like a bit hungry for the try line, which is really rare.
Yeah, he can score a try.
He can score a try. He has that footwork, but he also has the ability to drag defenders when he like runs straight. So he's that straight runner, but he actually like absorbs the contact and runs through the line. Yeah, I was surprised he didn't get more of an opportunity starting. I was surprised he didn't get bigger minutes. Maybe his like fitness is down. So that's the only knock I could really think of. Like, is like maybe he needs to get his fitness level up. Like, if he could get his fitness level up to where Sam Weller's fitness levels are, he might even be a better player.
Well, the thing was that he had to strip the weight because he was clearly carrying too much, and he did that this preseason. He had that foot injury before round 1, which kept him out of one of the trials, because I remember his first trial against the Warriors was exceptional. And then he was pretty much thrown straight into the side once he was ready. He debuted in Magic Round, and he did not look out of place. He actually excelled.
Yeah, he had a great season.
So with that in mind, again, I'm not too sure what we're looking for in the market. I'm sure we're after a forward of some sort, whether it's a front row, back row, or a lock. I'm not too sure. But like you say, I think that with another preseason, with the Jerome Luai breathing down his neck and spraying him from behind the rack, yeah, I think he could go to new heights.
Yeah, I think I actually did a little bit of trawling through the archives of the internet to see what like the rhetoric was like about him when he was a junior at Manly, and all of the Manly pundits on the forums that are like you and I had huge raps on him. Huge raps on him. Like there was more raps on him than there was on Sam Weller.
I feel like Sam Weller was the quiet one. You know, Manasseh and Latu were the ones that always got the plaudits. And then Sam Weller and Sione, you didn't hear anywhere near as much of. But I will agree with you. Sione had a little bit more fanfare coming into grade. But
Just from the people in the know, really. Like, I think that when he was in the juniors, he played more of like a senior middle forward kind of like leader role. And I think that enamored himself more to the people who are following the pathways over at Manly. Whereas since he's been at the Tigers, he's obviously been under the radar.
yeah, he certainly has. But with that in mind, I think, yeah, he's almost not necessarily a crucial piece, but an important one next year for first grade.
But he's in our best 17, so you would want to keep him.
I hear that. And look, he will be kept. I think it'll be like Staines last year, where it'll get announced once preseason rolls around. They've just got to clear a few spots, and I know for a fact that they're in the process of doing so. All right. Alex Twal, 18 games, scored 1 try, so doubled his career tries in 2024. Averaged 8 runs for 69 metres and an average carry of 8.6 meters. No line breaks. That's not a shock. 26 tackle breaks is something of a shock for Alex Twal. 6 offloads. That's also a shock. A 93% tackle efficiency is not a shock. He's exceptional. 4 try causes, 5 line break causes, 4 errors, 2 penalties. Look, Mr. Reliable. He missed a chunk of time through the season, I think, through concussion. I think he had some good moments early in the season. I think he had some bad ones where he was pushed back behind the advantage line. But I saw enough in the last 4 weeks of the season to think maybe he's finally starting to fucking get it.
I think with Alex, he's done that a few times in the past. Like almost every year there's a moment where he has a penny drop and like things change for him. It's like, I don't know, like he's the ultimate rocks or diamonds guy. Like there's no consistent average level to Twal. There's just, what is he even a first grader? And then there's like, oh wow, there's that kid who played New South Wales under 20s and like that almost cracked the Origin side when he was like 22. Like, and maybe you're right. Maybe this is it. Maybe it turns a corner. But I think a lot of it comes down to injuries. He's always coming back from injuries, so he's really never had a chance to just build on momentum and carry it through. And now, obviously, you know, his momentum coming into the off season is being disrupted by the off season. So hopefully he has a clean off season and he comes back into first grade. He's critical for our side because of his defense. Absolutely critical. You can see the difference in the fragility of our defense when he's on the field versus when he's not on the field. Him and Clemmer are critical for our defense. You would just really want both of them to be more like 120 meters a game, averaging 9 meters a carry. And you know, at their best, they're both more than capable of it, but they both failed to deliver on that this year. I think the trick for Twal is that he has to use his feet more and not like run direct into contact. Because every time you see him like wind up and he runs direct into contact, that's when he like actually tends to get forced backwards and might do a 3-meter carry. But if he actually uses early footwork to like get outside the like A defender and make the A defender move laterally, that's where his tackle breaks come from. And sometimes I'm surprised he didn't make any line breaks. I swear I saw him make a couple. Maybe they were considered half breaks, but there was at least 2 or 3 times this year where he made like good 15, 20-meter gallops. And to me, that's what he seemed to figure out, was he just needs more space to get that momentum up, because he's obviously not got a super, like, you know, high leg speed.
No. I think there's 3 players, 2 of which are in this episode, that need to have huge preseasons in order for us to do anything of note. Alex is one of them. He's one of those players that Benji is going to have to throw the gauntlet at and say, you are pivotal to our success, and he is.
Mm.
And defensively, he is wonderful. He doesn't miss tackles. He's so reliable. He's good in the wrestle, everything like that. But just in attack, we just need a little bit more from him. As you say, he makes arcing runs. He doesn't really use footwork.
Mm.
We need that more from him. You know, we need that inspirational carry from him. You know, we really, really do need that from him.
He's a bit of a like you can sort of tell how the Tigers are going by how well he's playing. I feel like that the games where Twal showed out were the games we won.
That's probably fair. I might go and see if that correlates at another time. Somebody who is a very, very similar player to Alex Twal is David Klemmer. David played 2 more games than Alex. He played 20. He did not get off the nudie with no tries, no try assists. He averaged 10 runs a game for 91 meters, so 9.1 meters a carry. He had no line breaks, which is a shock to no one, and 14 tackle breaks, 4 offloads, a tackle efficiency percentage the same as his partner in crime, Alex, at 93, 2 try causes, 7 line break causes, 2 errors, 6 penalties. Mate, these stats always read well. Clem is super reliable, doesn't miss his tackles, always cuts the ball up well. He actually gets across the advantage line pretty quickly. But his biggest issue has always been his play the ball speed and the way sometimes that, you know, once the going gets tough, sometimes teams just gang up on him and he can sort of meander a little bit. Again, the stats read well, but I have concerns that we have signed him for a year too long. And again, we need that enforcer. We need that guy that's going to carry us. Royce Hunt might be that guy, I don't know. But with Clem and Twal, I just think there's just 2 very, very similar players there, and that works to our detriment. As much as he had an incredible season last year, I just worry that next year might be the year where we see Dave begin to wane. What do you think?
It works to our detriment because Stefano failed. Like if Stefano was who he was supposed to be, having 2 rock solid guys to play the minutes outside of him would have been perfect. It's a good balance. Like you can't have a forward pack that only has like 1 solid defensive prop. You need 2. I think that all the points you raise about Clemmer are accurate. I think Twal's a better player than David. I found myself once Twal sort of got back into form towards the end of the season, wondering why it wasn't reversed. Twal starting Clemmer on the bench, or you know, I do know why they don't just start with Twal and Clemmer because there's just not enough punch. But Uto Kamanu wasn't really supplying any either. So, and given his defensive fragilities, like part of me was wondering whether we should just go with the defensive guys to start, play them out for the first 20 to like, you know, get in the grind and then bring on the Siones and, you know, guys that can actually provide a little bit more around the middle. Maybe even Stefano. Maybe Stefano would have performed better in that role. I think that Clemmer came good at the end of the year. That was the thing that I found strange, which makes me think that he was actually sort of part of the gang that were catting it. Because like his performances towards the end of the year in those games we played well, and you know, like the Manly game and stuff like that, he was running harder. He wasn't running backwards into tackles. He was trying to run through tackles. He was playing more like prime Keith Galloway. Like he was, you know, doing the big gallops in. Like obviously he's slow, but you got to account for that like lack of leg speed with like, you know, some oomph to your runs, and he was doing that, and he hadn't been doing it for most of the season. I don't know. I agree with you. I think the problem with Clemmer is he's just not the signing that we signed him to be. He's overpaid. He's earning about twice as much as Alex Twal, and I think Twal is at least on his level. So, you know, if I was playing Moneyball with the roster, I know like the value there. I'd be trying to find a way to get off that contract, honestly.
It's a hard sell, mate, at this age, and that's the thing. But one thing
medical retirement, Reedy, medical retirement.
one thing that we haven't, we touched on it lightly last week, and we're going to touch on it pretty considerably with the next bloke, but conditioning. I feel for Dave because he looked like he'd just been smoking bongs in the back shed.
He stopped eating red meat, mate.
Like, yeah, like he looked malnourished.
Eats too much falafel.
Like, yeah, he went on the Peter Siddle diet and he just never came
Yeah.
back. I look again. There's been a club wide admittance that our conditioning wasn't up to scratch, and maybe you know what, with a good preseason and he's eating zinger boxes and sucking down creatine and protein shakes, then he might be all right. But
Fortunately, at his age, he'd be needing to suck down testosterone replacement therapy to get max performance out of that body.
that's it. But yeah, look, I just worry that we're just carrying too many of these forward archetypes where you've got those solid guys. And yes, while you need two defensively, minded front rowers in your 17, you can have a Fisher Harris and an Isaiah Yo. I know that's the most extreme example, but both of which are amazing defensively, but offer something a little bit different. So
yeah, Fisher Harris. I don't think you compare Fisher Harris and Yo's approach with running the ball to David Clemmer and Alex Tom.
No, I don't think you can either. But I'm just giving you an idea that we probably need that enforcer. And as you say, we signed Clem to probably be that guy, and I just don't think he is at this stage of his career. 10 years ago, absolutely. Nowadays, not so much.
I wish we had that Clem. He would be just what we needed.
They tried to get him in 2016, and he nearly said yes.
You are right. I remember that. Yeah.
Another sliding doors moment. Anywho, somebody who I know you really want to speak about, Alex Seyfarth. 23 games split between the middle, the bench, and the edge. He had 4 tries, 8 average runs for 63 metres, 7.8 metres a carry. Obviously, again, it can be a little bit skewed because he played front row and back row. Back rowers don't make as many metres. 4 line breaks, 27 tackle breaks across the season, 15 offloads. He had a tackle efficiency percentage of 91%, which is actually quite impressive for a back rower / middle. And he actually had some really, really tough moments defending in the middle earlier in the season. Try causes, he had 8 of them. Line break causes 10. He had 4 errors, but Alex's biggest issue, he's the only player on this list that goes into double figures for penalties. His discipline was pretty bad. But with that said, there is some upside to Alex, and I know you feel that and you see that. So the floor's yours.
Like I said before about when I was talking about Bateman. So to me, the issue with Seyfarth and the issue with John Bateman in terms of what caused the bad sides of their game, what caused the problem with their stats, those high penalty numbers and the low meters gained, is because they were the only guys on the field that had mongrel, right? We're talking about mongrel, right? When you're the only guy on the field that has mongrel and you're the guy that's actually making the effort on effort tackle, you're the one that's trying to make that cover tackle, getting back on side, effort on effort. You're the one that's making that hard carry or taking it upon yourself to try to change the game by throwing an extra pass because nobody's doing anything. That leads to frustration. And it just leads to mistakes. It leads to you looking stupid sometimes because you miss a tackle that nobody else was there to even make. Everybody else is lurching around in the backfield. At least you were there actually trying to make the tackle.
True.
So to me, Alex and John had both had the same thing. The difference is John was on 800K. Alex is on probably a quarter of that, maybe a little bit more. John's 30, Alex is 24, 25 now. So you can appreciate it from Alex. But you look at those tackle break stats, the amount of tries he scored, his offloads, all of that, it paints a pretty picture, especially when you compare it with his defense. I think he might be, honestly, if you really wanted to knuckle down and look through the stats, he might be the most underrated player in the whole NRL, I think. I went through a list of fantasy stats and looked at points per minute, value. He's above some serious names in terms of the sort of stats that you would imagine feeding that VB harder and index shit that they talk
Yeah,
about.
I know what you mean. Yeah, base stats for anybody who doesn't play Supercoach, points per minute is basically an understanding of how many points a player accrues. during their time on the field. And that typically bodes well for hard workers. There's some players that are just attacking freaks. They might make a little bit more, but it's more around sort of base stats, so your tackles and your meters gained and those sorts of things.
And what I want to point out is like Alex didn't play big minutes. He can play big minutes, I think. But when he's the guy who's like redlining the whole time he's on the field, you can't get through 80. And when you're the guy who is the only one in the pack that's trying to put a hit on or like trying to make an extra run, it puts you under pressure. If you take the pressure off a player like that, it gives them the time to think. And it gives them the time to maybe do other things that they don't usually do. Maybe they, instead of being gassed because they made that effort play, they're actually there for a better play on the next play. So for me, I think Alex has developed really nicely. If he didn't get binned once this year,
big if.
I think he got sin binned 3 times or something. But if he didn't get binned once this year, he would. I feel like the rhetoric around him is entirely different because he scored some great tries. He became a bit of a go-to man for Appy. Like the team rallies around him. Some of the commentators, they love him. Like Johns loves him because they know what he is, because they've got the player perspective on what he is as a player.
Yeah, he's a bit mad, and they love a bit of a madman, but also a guy that's willing to do anything for his teammates and for his club.
And unlike John Bateman, he never stopped until the 80th minute in his spoon bowl. Like he you didn't see him spraying anybody except for himself.
Yes.
And like I think that there's a really good chance that somebody like Jerome Luai will actually unlock him, because Jerome Luai will create more pressure defensive lines, and somebody like Alex isn't known for his attacking play. But if you look at the stats, he had arguably the best mix of attacking stats of any of our forwards.
Yeah, I think that's a fair claim, mate. With Alex, it's really interesting. He's this really interesting build where he's 191 centimeters. He's fucking tall, and he's 104 kilos, but he still looks like a string bean out there. That like he's still missing that extra sort of 3 or 4 kilos that he needs. Mate, if he can find that, and not lose any of his speed or his urgency, yeah, look, I think he's in for a really, really good season. As you say, even if it isn't Luai, because he'll probably be on the right edge if Samuel is on the left. If he has a good preseason, he'll be outside Galvin, and he'll get some pretty nice ball there as well. Look, there is a reason why Alex has always been kept around by every coach that's been through the building, and that is because he just fucking works hard on and off the field, on his craft. He's always doing extras. He cares. And, for the last few years, there hasn't been many West Tigers players that genuinely care like Alex does. So with that in mind, I thought that he was probably going to have his breakout season this year, and he was apparently doing very, very well at training, was training at lock. But again, the conditioning plan, whatever it was from Peter Musa, wasn't good enough, and he was just getting barreled over through the middle by Canberra's starting middles in the first game of the year, and Marshall had to tinker with it. When he got on the field and he played in the middle around a tired ruck, he was exceptional. So providing that we can fix his conditioning, I think that he can come from the clouds and be a real force for us, because defensively he's excellent. He didn't even miss a tackle in Spoon Bowl.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. He's 60-point thrashing and he didn't miss a tackle.
That's right, didn't miss a tackle. So there's that.
Oh.
You can see his whole running ability in the try that he scored where he went past Luke Brooks.
Did you know, just on that subject, I wanted to bring that up. Do you remember who the link man that passed to Latu Fonu was on that play?
I don't.
Alex 12.
Wow. Okay. He has it in him. He has it in him. That is an unreal stat. Great spot, mate. Yeah, look, I just think with Alex, it's conditioning. He has the mindset, he has the application and the effort. He clearly wants to see the club do well, and the coaching staff love him. He just needs to hope that Peter Musa doesn't let him down, and hopefully with Jerome Luai, Sunil Taruva, Royce Hunt, etc., the rising tide will lift those ships.
I just think he needs some lean muscle. I think his weight is a little bit. Some people are just heavier than others because they've got thicker bones. You know what I mean? Like the difference between 99 and 104 kilos can come down to very little between like one guy and another. Like Cameron Murray is much lighter than Alex Seyfarth, but you wouldn't know it by the way they play on the field. So it's not all about weight to me. To me, I think he needs strength. Like he needs to get shredded. Like he needs to get in the gym and actually like do the Heath Mason program.
Yeah, I hear you, mate. And if he can do that, because again, he's tall for a back rower. Like he's exactly what you want. If he can do that, then who knows?
I haven't seen him shirt off. He might actually be shredded for all I know. Maybe the problem is that he's not fat enough.
Yeah, again, it's just the collision with Alex. He just doesn't win on either side of the ball. If he can do that, because again, he's got good technique. I remember when we played that game in 2022 against Souths, and Brooks kicked the field goal, that he kept Kaloa Matangi under lock and key all night. It's just, again, it's just winning that collision because he wants to inspire his teammates, but he just doesn't have the body mass behind him to do it. So if he's a bit stronger, he'll get there.
Like I said, man, I just think Alex is the sort of player that just gets unlocked when there's just more talent around him and less pressure on him to be the only guy that's actually like trying to do stuff. Like all the penalties will go away when he's not like redlining all the time. And as long as he decreases his penalties, then you trust him to get more minutes, and then you'll see that he'll become a work rate guy, and he'll score the average try. I know it's a big call, but like he's got Liam Martin qualities in his game.
It's a big call to make, but
they're very similar players. Liam Martin,
I see where you're coming
far
from.
more polished, and Liam Martin is surrounded by talent.
Yes, and obviously their builds are a little different, but I get where you come from. They're both a little bit mad.
Mm-hmm.
They're both trying to inspire their team. They're both all effort. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. But yes, he needs some of that polish, and hopefully he gets some of it in this preseason. Is he one of your starting back rowers next year, pending any signings?
Probably. I mean, me, yes, because I rate him.
He's mine too currently. I'd have him on the right edge, Semweller on the left, and I'd have Jack Bird on the bench. So I agree.
I think that we'll probably see Jack Bird start in the back row, unless something happens in the preseason to change it. I think that's their plan.
We'll see when the photos come out and come January and whatnot with the field sessions. But anyway, high hopes for Alex, and hopefully he can achieve them.
Origin.
That's where we'll leave it, guys. As I said at the top, we'll be back on Friday for part 2 of our middles analysis. See you then.